Hello and welcome to this Cresfest world. That incredible funky playing you heard just now is from the Haas sisters from the USA, who were international guests at Cresfest in 2023. My name's Neil Adam and I'm your host. Cresfest is a music festival which takes place every year in April in Creswick, a small country town in rural Victoria near Ballarat, maybe 90 minutes out of Melbourne. Organising a music festival in a small country town puts you in touch with all kinds of interesting people. Some are local, some are not. Some are musicians, some are not. Some of the chat is about music, and guess what? Some is not. In this second episode of Volunteers and Marmalade, you're going to find out about Martindale Hall in South Australia. You're also going to find out about the Australian Marmalade Awards and how Reuben's marmalade found its way to King Charles. But before we get sidetracked again, let's hear from another great Cresfest volunteer, Terry Hope, professional photographer and filmmaker.
Who wouldn't want a music festival in their town? I've always been involved in the community. I've been here 30 years now. I've been here longer than I was in England. So you feel like you need to give something back. And primarily, it was the filmmaking aspect, media, producing artist profiles, editing, just putting together little packages for social media and the like. And event coverage, obviously, during the event itself. So, just using my skills to try and raise the level of the festival, and hopefully make sure it maintains a good profile and carries on.
And it's been great in that way. I think it's very well supported by your great photography. The festival, it makes an immediate public impact to have quality photography done. When you say monitoring the events, which is what you just said, what does that mean exactly? What do you do?
Run around like a headless chicken with a camera on my shoulder, trying to capture as much of the spirit of the festival and the quality of the talent that's there. And primarily to obviously promote the following year's festival, but also there's things like acquittals that have to be done for any grants, and so there has to be a document of the festival itself, and so that's probably the best way to do it. I mean, it means I don't get to see an awful lot, except in short bites.
Because you're on the move.
Exactly, but
an awful lot.
Hopefully after we've had the 2 years now, we've collected a lot of material that we can use ongoing, so I'm intending to see a few more acts in their entirety this time.
Well, I think you deserve it. You've kind of gathered a gang of like-minded people around you doing the same kind of thing but under your supervision, really. How has that come about?
There are a number of photographers that follow the festival circuit. I mean, we're really lucky to have Adam. He's absolutely brilliant. And that way, we both have different skills. I mean, filming and stills are different, complementary. So we're both able to just carry on and do our thing. And we pass on in the street, and I guess the only organisation between the two of us is that if Adam's just come out of something that's really going off, he'll just give me the nod and point me in the right direction so we can get some good film of it, and vice versa. So we're lucky to have people like that, and he does it for the love of it. I mean, he stays and camps locally, and
Adam's an air traffic controller in his day job, and
go figure.
Go figure. That's meant to be one of the most sort of mentally taxing jobs that you could possibly have. And obviously, when people are flying into an airport, 300 people per aeroplane or something, or more, or whatever it is, that's a huge amount of responsibility to make sure they get to land safely. So I can quite understand why you would need a part-time passion to clear your brain out at the weekends. And he, as you said, he follows the festival circuit around and volunteers his time, and also takes great photographs. Yeah, we're really very fortunate in that way.
And there's a couple of other people. I mean, one of my clients pops in for half a day. He shoots some video as well, because clients. when you've worked with clients for like 20 odd years, they're no longer just clients, they're good friends. So Nick will come in and do half a day just to pick up crowd shots and things like that, which is what we probably will concentrate more on this year, is the festival atmosphere more than the acts, because obviously the acts will change every year. But hopefully the joy, the joie de vivre that goes on during the festival is a constant, and that's what we want to project. Adam's done some fantastic shots of the artists, of course, but yeah, I think this time we're going to be turning the camera around a bit more towards the audience and just try and show what that experience is, because it's got a great soul, it's got a great, a really good feeling about the festival. So to try and capture that I think is vital, because it's unique. It's not a big field full of tents and marquees. It's actually using the spaces in the town, and I think that's quite unique. I don't think there's many festivals that can do that.
At this stage, I must say, I thought the interview was going pretty well with Terry, but then I made the fatal mistake of asking him if there was anything else important in his life at the moment that he wanted to have a chat about.
Much as I love Marmalade, but the commercial product just doesn't do it for me.
Oh no, I could feel the interview slipping away from me again.
It's too much sugar, it's too sweet. I've never had a sweet tooth. I've never had sugar on cereals or in tea or anything. And it just masks the fruit. Whereas yours is, I know that is a really nice grapefruit marmalade, because I can taste the grapefruit. You can taste the depth and that little bit of, that little sour note, which is, if you're going to put, my old man used to put sugar on grapefruit when he was eating it. I thought, why don't you just eat an orange? You're masking the flavour. So I loved it. It was quite, it didn't last long, but that's just the way.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is that it didn't set all of it in the way that I would have wanted, and I was completely confused by that, because jars which came out of the same pan, some of it set and some of it did not set, so that's just a scientific mystery to me.
The setting of Marmalade is black art. It's just, nobody knows. There is no scientific rhyme or reason, and I've got that on good authority from a friend of mine who's commercially makes marmalade. And but the joy of that, equally, I don't mind if it sets or not, because I just don't put any butter on the toast, and then I spoon it on, and that lovely marmalade just soaks into the toast, and all the large lumps of fruit sit on the top, and you've got a perfect breakfast. I mean, what could be better than marmalade infused toast?
One of the things I wanted was an element of music in the Marmalade competition.
Well, this is Jane Hazel again from Dalmain, and I began to realise that I might as well go with the sticky flow of the conversation.
And so we commissioned a composer who actually lived in London, I think. She's dead now, but she composed the Marmalade song. And it's a complex song. It changes key, it's in rounds, it has wonderful words to it. And the local village school said that they would learn it. And so every single child learns it, so that there's never a situation where the top class go and they can't remember how it works. And so right from the beginning in our opening ceremony, the school children come and sing this Marmalade song. And we went to London once and brought the choir down to London. And some of the children had never been to London, which was really exciting. And we went to the Japanese embassy where we were launching the festival in Japan, and they sang there. And the school teachers who came with them were so inspired, and they took them to see Buckingham Palace, because in the words, it says they go to the Queen, they go to the palace, and they're offered cucumber sandwiches, and they say, no, thank you very much. Marmalade sandwiches is what we want. And so It's such a splendid moment. We went on a marmalade tour in Victoria, and we talked to people, district nurses, about end-of-life care and marmalade. And so the marmalade was the sort of the humorous side, and then we moved into that. And we went to Mildura, I can remember that, and this extraordinary, just the whole wealth of oranges and the freshness of them. Yes. And that's why I think the Marmalashes, they win every time, because of course people in Australia are just going out into their garden and picking their oranges and making their marmalade, and it's easy and delicious. But interestingly, in Japan we have a similar thing, because where we have our festival is down in the south in a place called Yawatahama, and they grow 150 different kinds of citrus there.
Wow.
Which is astonishing. Yes, it's wonderful. Wow. And over the years we've learnt a little bit about the different kinds. There's wonderful things like yuzu and dai and things like that. Now, Ian Tolley always says that actually oranges in the beginning, when God made the world, oranges did actually come from Australia, and that they are, that's where we can say thank you.
So good fruit is, very important as well. So as I say, I've got beautiful sevels, beautiful Tangelos from my friend Myra.
Here we are back again with Reuben Cooperman, Australian champion marmalade maker.
Myra's 94. She's the most amazing woman. Gets out into her garden every day, and she's got 3 beautiful Tangelo trees that she tends very lovingly, mostly for me now. And she also grows wonderful lemons. But of her 3 trees, the prize-winning one is one particular tree. It's the westernmost tree in a row of 3, and I know that when I go there to pick each May and June, I know which tree I want my Tangelos from. They're the most perfect and lovely fruit. Yeah, I'm blessed in many ways that people sort of think of me. Sometimes I just come home of an afternoon or of an evening and there'll be a bag of fruit on my front door.
Reuben, tell us a bit about the Fit for the King award that you won and the phone call that Jane made to you. She said I should ask.
The reason she rang me was that to tell me that I'd won that category, which was like as I say, it was like one of the greatest, pinnacle of my achievement, you could say, as far as marmalade goes. But she also rang to say, do you have another jar of it? Because we can't really give the king the jar that we've tasted, and we loved it so much. There's almost none left, So I did happen to have one more jar. So she said, can you please send that across? And so I did. And for this one, when I sent that second jar that was going to be for his presentation, I went to my local men's shed and had a presentation box made out of West Australian timber, out of Jarrah and she oak, which are 2 native West Australian timbers. And then I had that lined with a special lining and purple velvet, and I had my label engraved on the front of it and embossed in gold, right? So it looked like it belonged, on a royal table. The marmalade is shown in a part of the house that's about 300 years old, but it's the most beautiful room. And my display of that winning jar was in a window with the sort of light streaming through the window onto my jar of marmalade with the Jarrah box and the Union Jack festooned cardboard box in the background. It was very pretty.
Do we know if King Charles has tried it, or?
Look, it's a really good question. I haven't heard directly from him. I was presented the award by a member of the royal household who's his cousin, a lady called Elizabeth, funnily enough, and his representative in Cumbria, who's, I can just remember her name, first name was Claire, I can't remember her surname. So they were the ones that presented the award to me, and all I could do was put my faith in them to get it in one piece to the palace, and I'm hoping they did. But I guess you could say that was about a week and a half before the coronation, and you could probably fair to say there was a fair amount going on around the royal household at that time. So
you mean you think he had other things more important to do with his time than pay attention to marmalade? I find that very hard to believe.
Well, so do I, but there you go. Look, there's a chance that I'll be visiting Western Australia later in the year, and so I'm sort of well acquainted with the local governor here, and he's also familiar with the story, you know. And
let me say this while you're still online with me. It seems to me that, well, I mean, it's obvious. You are at the pinnacle of marmalade making in Australia. And from someone who is down away at the bottom end of the mountain, I just like to express our wonder and gratitude from the rest of the mountain to the person at the pinnacle.
thank you so much, Neil. I sort of don't consider myself like that, but you know, it's lovely that other people do. Just a quick one on the Marmalashes before you sign off.
Yeah.
I was there for the judging of the Marmalashes in 2023, but I suppose, you know, when you're sort of there, it's yeah, it's a lovely thing. It's lovely to see it judged. Actually, one of the real highlights of the Marmalade Festival itself is being in that main room, the state room or the sitting room of the house, surrounded by marmalade, surrounded by some of the greatest marmalade makers in the world and some of the finest judges too. People like Dan Leppard and Ivan Day and just people who are luminaries in the field, you know, and watching them go jar by jar and with making their comments openly in front of the audience. It's the only time that there's a judging process that's actually open to anybody who wants to be there, and seeing it happen in front of your eyes and watching your marmalade get tasted and people saying stuff about it is like, it's like nothing else, you know. It's pretty incredible.
You were about to start talking about the connection with Martindale Hall.
Essentially, what happened was that Edmund Bowman was the manager here at Dalmain, and his son, we're talking the end of the 1700s, decided that he would go out to Australia to make his fortune, which he did. Now, his grandson came back to this country, and he would have visited his grandfather up in Cumbria. And he was fascinated by Dalmain. And his grandfather had a very important job here. He had actually probably lived in the house with his wife, because the Hazel family were pretty absentee landlords at that point. And so he would have had the run of Dalmain and seen how it all was. He fell in love with the young daughter of the house here. She was called Frances. And she was quite interested in him, but she said no, she couldn't marry him. She couldn't marry him. And so he went back out to Australia, 1870s, something like that, and he built a copy of Dalmain. And so if you look at it, it is a sort of Georgian house. It's built in Victorian times, obviously. And when we went there, we took a photograph of the facade of the house, which was so similar. And then we took one of our house, and the front of our house has a yew tree, and the front of their Martindale Hall has a palm tree. So, you know, there was a wonderful sort of similarity, only not. And so he built this wonderful house, and he built it actually very similarly inside, but more cleverly. And so he had the cellars, but he had an inner, whereas we have an inner courtyard, he had an inner hall, and all the rooms fed off this inner hall. So having built this wonderful house, he came back to Cumbria and said, "Will you marry me?" And she said no. And so he went out to Australia and eventually married an Australian girl. And I think he was very cast down by this refusal, because for quite a number of years he became quite a playboy, and he played a lot of polo and he played a lot of cricket. In theory, he had the English cricket team came up to Martindale Hall, and they have a cricket pitch up there. They have a wonderful train station called Martindale Hall, and that would have been built. I think he was very, very supportive of trains, and that was similar in this country, that Edward Hazel in this country was busy being the chairman of the railway up here. And so his model was very, very close. And one of the most fascinating things, I went to Martindale Hall, and we went and explored the sort of the bones of the garden, slightly scarily, because I didn't want to walk on any snakes, and I'm sure there were quite a few. But there was a wonderful orchard, and there were still plum trees that were growing that he would have planted. And then beside the house, I've seen pictures, there was a rose garden. And that was so similar to what we have at Delmain and what he would have seen. And so you can imagine them sort of walking in the garden and the dreams and fantasies. But I think probably that Frances Hazel, for her, she was living in this very busy house because it was full of people, full of family. And the thought of going somewhere on the other side of the world would be sort of like going and saying, yes, I'll go and live on the moon with you, I think, because it was so uncertain. Yes. And there would have been very few people living in the house and round about. And I think it was too much for her. She never got married. And my husband can remember her. She was really fun. And she, as an old lady, one of my dreams was that we could have a marmalade festival there, but it never transpired. And so quite the best thing that has happened is getting this festival in Birregurra, because it absolutely, they've reflected the idea of community. And I'm so interested. The Bray restaurant is an internationally famous restaurant.
Yeah.
And then sponsor it. And they're reproducing the winner. And that's the other joy, is that you get this winner, this absolute treasure of a marmalade, and then part of the sale of that goes to charity. And so it's a wonderfully sort of win-win situation where the people who win have the kudos of it, but they don't make any money out of it. And so, again, it comes back into the sort of voluntary sort of idea that you're supporting charity. You're not doing this for personal gain. As a volunteer, you get so much out of it. And because you can give your time. That is something you might not have the skill that is needed, but you can give your time, which is hugely beneficial. It makes you feel good. And I think that the result of having a festival, such as a music festival, I mean, I do think music is one of the things, well, it's meant to reach more parts of your brain than any other stimulus.
Perhaps except for marmalade.
True. I just remember that. And so there's the village school. There are the girl guides, because I was very involved with the girl guides. So they come every year and dress up as Paddington, and they help. There's the Lions Club, and they've been incredibly helpful in parking. We have the WI, so the CWA, and they have been incredible in the amount of judging of marmalade. Which has been fantastic, really. We've got the hospice volunteers, so they have been true to this competition since we started. So that's now 19 years that they have been there supporting us. And I made a list because I thought it was quite interesting to think who else was involved. The church, we have a marmalade festival service on the Sunday.
Really?
And, yeah, we do. And so, and the stipulation is that the preacher has to make marmalade. And we've had bishops and we've had deans and we've had vicars, but they have to make marmalade. So that to me made sense. I loved building this infrastructure of people who were doing something in their own voluntary capacity, but then came into the marmalade capacity. And the main thing was then finding people to unwrap parcels, because that's a huge task. There are so many now sent by post.
Really?
And then the people who are going to log the marmalade, the people who are going to judge the marmalade, and then the people who are going to put it out on display. And actually, when we were travelling around Victoria, we went to one of the local agricultural shows, and it was at Nil, I think.
Yes.
And so I asked the judges, because there was a beautiful shed which was specifically for that agricultural show and for nothing else, with beautiful mahogany showcases inside. It was a lovely thing. So I said, could I enter my marmalade? She said, it's a bit late, but yes, because I had a jar. I always travel with my own marmalade in my bag, just in case.
Jane, just in case of what? In case there's a competition you could enter, or in case the house that you end up at hasn't got a supply of suitable marmalade?
I think that's exactly it. Because we all think our own marmalade is the best. And so I entered this competition. I'm afraid I don't think I even got rated. It was just not good enough. And so anyway, there we are.
first we took the high road, and then we took the low, and I would follow after him wherever he would go. Our day's work here or there, and we didn't give a damn. We lived on underground mutton and pond on jam. Well, you never know where a conversation's going to take you, do you? It was really great to hear from Jane at the end there about all the marvellous contributions to her festival made by those groups and individuals involved in making the Dalmain Marmalade Awards and Festival such a successful thing for almost 20 years now. That's a real inspiration for Cresfest, also a small town country event, albeit on the other side of the world, but hey, we're happy to learn from anyone. Cresfest is gradually building up a network of individuals and community groups supportive of what we're trying to build. 120 volunteers this year are giving their time to our 3-day festival, and around 30 people are volunteering time during the year to do all the organising in the background. Don't hesitate to be in touch with us by emailing volunteers@cresfest.com.au if you'd like to help. And there's still plenty of time to be a volunteer at Cresfest 2024 by going to the website cresfest.com.au and clicking on Get Involved. I want to thank everyone who has helped me not get lost on my journey to Marmaladeville. Thanks, of course, to Jane Hazel for her great sense of humour and her inspiration, to Scott Wise for the guitar and marmalade, and to Reuben Cooperman for his advice and stories. And of course, last but not least, to Jamie and Carol and to Terry for being such great volunteers and giving Cresfest and our community their time and their care. There are quite a few things, I think, in the podcast that you might be interested in following up on. You might want to know that the Australian Marmalade Awards are held at Birregurra every August, and you can find out more about them at marmaladeawards.com.au. To find out more about Dalmain House, Jane's stately home near Penrith in Cumbria in the north of England, go to dalmain.com. That's spelt Daleemain. You can also find out more about Martindale Hall by going to their website, martindalehall.com.au. The music in the background and occasionally in the foreground this time has been from our New Dog's Old Tricks 2005 CD. Priyesh Valkani and Judy Turner playing fiddles, Judy Turner playing mouth harp, Gus Rigby playing the sax, Bruce Packard playing double bass, and that's me playing a beautiful Scott Wise guitar. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and rate us. It all helps spread the word. When I was young, there was a great BBC radio commentator called John Ebden who used to finish always with these words: "If you have been, thanks for listening." See you next time. Bye-bye.